Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who've lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created, this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively inclined. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our
MKCANADA.
Hello.
How's it going, everybody?
That
Welcome to
was
the show.
an intro.
Welcome to the sunny, warm beaches of Canada, of MKCANADA, the psychological operation that's for everybody. I'm Andreas. How are you doing? So Bernie's somewhere.
I'm doing great.
Oh, what's up, Anaday? Yeah, Anaday's below, and he's our Welsh, partially fairy, lifestyle expert. Raphael is also here somewhere, I believe.
Yeah.
He's grazing.
He's grazing right now. Jim's with us from Team Rabbit Hole, who's also with Raph from Team Rabbit Hole. How's it going, Jim?
We just did an episode, but here we are. Thanks for the invite.
You can't stop podcasting.
Can't stop,
can't stop the magic. Stephanie, how are you?
I'm good.
I know you've been working a lot. I'd like to hear. We'll have to talk a bit about what you've been working on. American Time Machine. Kurt, how's it going?
Great.
The music man in the house, and then Annie Blackwood from Balance Blackwood and the Holistic with the W.
Holistic.
Yeah, what's up?
Yes.
So the world's in peril. Gaia, the spirit of the earth, actually called upon the spirits of Earth, Wind, and Fire to create the power of Captain Planet. And Biden arrived in Canada to stop Captain Planet earlier today with NORAD immigration on the agenda. That's kind of
That hair kind of looks like Captain Planet's mullet.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I can't help it.
The green marine mullet. Yeah.
It just seems weird to me because this whole thing was kind of supposed to be an ecological meeting, and then it turned into an agenda, a meeting on immigration agenda, and also borders. It became all about the Canadian border. Where was that at? Biosafeties. I'm going too far ahead. Terrorism allegations, so much stuff. Okay, U.S.-Canada closes in on deal to prevent border crossing. Pact aims to reduce incentives to file new asylum claims. Crossings have been a political problem for Biden and Trudeau. See, it seems like there are people that can get into Canada and they come to the United States, and then they have a bunch of family members there. Let's say your name is Muhammad, and you just use your cousin's passport or his ID. And so there's like 20 guys living in, Dakota and North Dakota who are all coming through Canada, and then vice versa. It seems similarly that you get in some legal trouble in the United States and you're crossing Canada. This is the same problem that we talked about a few years ago with South America and Latin America into California. But now we're talking about Canada. Isn't that kind of weird? Like, we never talk about Canada's borders. It feels like this is crazy.
Wow,
The last time I remember people talking about Canada's borders was when people were fleeing because of lockdowns.
Right. True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you think that's they're using this kind of as an excuse because of the lockdowns? Because, I mean, there was never really, it felt like a big problem with the Canadian border.
Xirtus, that is like some weird shit. That's like
Right.
an interesting Lady Blackwood. You just mentioned that because like one of the cheapest places to live in New York State, in upstate New York, I'm in downstate, I'm in Yonkers, but is Niagara Falls. And Niagara Falls has one of the highest crime rates and murder rates. And that's where all the newlyweds go to celebrate getting married. I'm like, what in the fuck?
Yeah, it's pretty weird,
Well,
actually.
Niagara Falls is sketchy. We used to go there
It's
for dance competitions.
Really?
On the
What?
Canadian side
Yeah.
or the American?
Both,
Fucking
but more
sketchy.
the American. They'd have like national competitions there
What?
when I was
So-
a kid.
And so, what was so sketchy about it? Tell us about that experience.
Oh, it's a hazy memory now, and obviously, like I was just kind of more so, within the areas of the stadium and whatnot. I think they'd go there because there was a lot of outlet mall shopping and all the dance moms like that. But I just remember wandering around the downtown and just everything being far different from any sort of like Canadian city. Like it really did feel like there was a huge difference between Canadian Niagara Falls and Niagara Falls, New York. Everything just seemed dingier and rough.
It's not as
I
nice
don't
in
know.
the
I liked
American
it,
side. Yeah.
but it was gritty.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I wonder if that's just America in general, but there is something about that, the idea of the border, and that this is kind of where people that live on either side of the law, are able to kind of centralize. Niagara Falls is kind of strange. I'll give you that.
That's a weird reference to make, because my girlfriend Epona, who's like all over my feed, if you ever see, she's like this very big Celtic chick, and she named herself after the goddess Epona, who's the goddess of wild beasts, because she's an animal whisperer. And I mean, I've seen her hold like a duck or a deer or pet a deer at a nature preserve, and they like immediately, it's ridiculous. It's like
Snow White.
exactly Snow White. So the weird thing is that there's like this cut off point between like the sanctity of nature in way high up New York State, where one of my nine first cousins is getting out of vet with his wife and their children and grandchildren. And I'm like, did you have to learn to speak mountain man? And he's like, no, because everybody up in Quebec speaks French. So it's like New France is like right nearby, and they want to secede from greater part of Canada. It's like weird. So all of that amalgam of culture, we know as syncheads or synchronauts, those who maneuver through life through synchronicity. There's like a big, rich, magical tradition from France. And when you have that right there on the East Coast in Quebec, it's like a running joke. If you come to Quebec, you better learn French.
Unless you're in Montreal, you can kind of get away with living in Montreal, which is like kind of why it's become this weird, like Montreal has become kind of, you got a lot of people speaking Chinese or Arabic or English, you don't have to speak French in Montreal, which is interesting.
You just have to like our
They'll stop you if you try to speak French and you're not a native speaker.
Right.
They'll detect your accent and they'll just switch to English. So it's even tough to learn if you're trying to pick up French.
It's weird because the French have a longer history with witch trials than the rest of Canada. Sorcery in New France, right? The idea there was a bunch of people don't know that much about the witch trials in Canada, but there were, and I think it went into the 19th century even that there was the last Canadian witch that was burnt or was attacked in some sort of a riot. But in the 17th century in Quebec, it was pretty common actually to say, okay, well, this is witchcraft, or, arrest a guy because he turned into an animal and attacked a bunch of people. He became a wolf or something. The wolf attack was a big thing. Oh, these guys would become wolves and attack people, so we have to take them out.
You did it. It was your fault. Right.
But they have these weird stories, right?
So it must have been.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, if your livestock goes missing and you want to blame somebody, but they have all these weird legends, right? Like the flying canoes, right? Charles Vin's depiction of a scene from La Chasse Galerie, a fable about a lumberjack making a deal with the devil to fly home in a canoe, right?
Okay.
You guys familiar with this? Anybody know this
Never
one?
heard of it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Vincent talked about this at
surprised.
one point, but yeah. So let's see. Ursa Maria L'Incarnation wrote disturbing voices she heard in the air of a fiery canoe in the sky. what's more, Lynn Nation wrote in a letter to her son. It was discovered that there are sorcerers and magicians living in the country, and so that kind of started this scare that, hey, Canada's full of magic people, and particularly in the French region, it seems there are occult practicing French magicians that have castles and are doing interesting things and making deals with the devil so they can have what sounds to me like technology, like a flying canoe, right? And in a weird way, it reminds me of the whole NORAD thing, because you've got the French occult right dealing with Biden and this deal that they're making for NORAD of all things, and they're saying it's about immigration, which it's kind of interesting that was it Canada's immigration policy has grown Canada by 1 million people. So there is a lot of immigration in Canada, but it's legal, and it's what Canada's is encouraging it. So it seems kind of strange to say that there's some sort of a problem necessarily with this, except for that they need it to control underground military bunkers like NORAD.
Check out that background design. That's pretty cool.
I like it.
So, hi everybody. Hi Andreas. And just because you mentioned immigration, technology, and people turning into animals, have any of you guys seen Carnival Row, the recent series? It's full of steampunk once again, shapeshifters, black magic, so all immigration, racism, all the things you mentioned.
Cool.
What is Carnival Row about? Like, is it kind of like the Pinocchio thing where they become animals, or is there more magic to it?
No, it's fairies, like fairies and fae people living in human culture, and so it's the whole the fairies and the fae are the down and out people that they're racist against, and
right,
the
travel. So
immigrating.
Wow, so like the traveler culture, kind of talking about the British gypsies. But actually, Anaday, you talk about being related to the Fae, right? So this is kind of about your great grandparents.
That's thank you for raising that, because that is like one of my favorite fucking series. If there was like,
you seen this yet?
Shocked.
Oh, it's amazing! You've got to go see it. I bailed out before Cthulhu from Lovecraft showed up, but he's in there too.
Hashtag priorities.
Right. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. They like tie together fae or fairy lore and like the Lovecraftian mythos of, the Cthulhu mythos, and it all fits together beautifully. I'm like, why was this canceled? Can you please keep continuing this?
Does it have like a Gangs of New York vibe? It seems like this kind of rising from the slums.
Yes. As a matter of fact, because 5 points. Interestingly enough, thank you for raising that. Because when they made Gangs of New York, there was like no other place in Lower Manhattan. I used to work in financial. I used to be corporate. That's why I have a side part and bangs.
A maple leaf has 5 points.
But the fact of the matter is, they filmed it on a waterfront village in Italy.
Outsourcing,
but also because there were no buildings that were short of it. So
Doug's making it in also. We're going to have to ask some more questions about this when Doug gets here. But really quickly, I wanted to know, do you think this sounds kind of believable as someone who's descendant of Fae? Do you think that the Fae went through something like this, or does this seem resonant as some...
I think that a lot of people that were a lot of midwives who were accused of witchcraft and sorcery, being sorceresses, the patriarchy wanted to disempower them. But a lot of us that do have attributes are intermarried with the Fae. And that's the reason why on my mom's side of the family, who is from Thuringia, which is one of the southeastern districts of Germany that was caught behind the wall. And my godmother, Christina, hi Christina, she actually had her left hand broken by the National Socialists because she was
left hand path.
This was in second grade, and I'm like, and that is how deliberate totalitarianism, whether it takes the guise of socialism or communism or National Socialism from Germany, that was all. It's all contrived. They're trying some agency or other, or multiple agencies are trying to silence us of our originality. Right. And in part, some of that is because they know we're from different genetic lineages. And when we intermarry with other people, we convey those attributes. It might not be the next child, but it might be the next child. And one of my friends, who's a brilliant Irish geneticist, Catherine Odlin, is like, oh, Anade, it's like Russian roulette. You never know what you're going to get.
That's interesting. So
that's
Doug also just joining us. Doug, just so you know, Anade is descendant from the Fae, and it's an interesting idea that the witch trials, when we look into the Basque witch trials, the Canadian witch trials, the American witch trials, the British witch trials, that there's an idea of family that had magic to begin with, something that is in the line from a more magically inclined. Do you think that makes any sense? Do you believe in anything like this?
Short answer is yes. Yes.
You know, and they want to. I mean, it's a form of genocide. They want to intermarry us out of existence or just wipe us out by hiring hitmen. You know, I've got, you know, as much as I feel you all are my sistren and brethren, there's like also a component. I've got like maybe enemies in equal measure as my friends, you know, because they just don't want us to breathe, essentially.
So yeah, I'm sorry, but also Doug, yeah, you were about to continue. Like when magic people, how do you think that makes sense? Some people are more magic than others, or what do you think?
Well, I do not pretend to be tapped into any depth of knowledge. I will simply say that in my experience, we've all got latent abilities. It's in us all. I think perhaps certain genetic lines are able to express it more readily than others, but it is an innate ability that the human race carries with it. It certainly makes sense that apparatuses of power and those kind of lattices that are built up today are doing everything they can to stamp out everything but the basic expression of human existence. But inevitably, like you say, it may skip a generation. It's going to continue to pop up. There is no stamping this out. And the more we bring awareness to that, the more it will bubble up within us all.
Word. What about Kurt? Do you have thoughts on magic? What do you think? Do you think you're magical people?
I think we're all magical. You know, we're all.
Have you met some people that seem very much less magical than others?
Go on Animal Farm here.
Oh, absolutely. Well, they're the people that are more indoctrinated. The more indoctrinated you are, you just can't maximize your magical powers if you don't believe in it. And we're not conditioned as a society to believe in magical powers in any sense whatsoever, and that's part of the issue.
And you know, you study magic. What do you think? Is it in everybody, or are there some people that have it more?
Well, I mean, I agree that it's in everybody. Like, we all have the ability to tap into it. I don't think that anybody like has the ability more than others when it comes to innate ability. I think, like they were all saying, you know, it's a matter of programming. It's a matter of how you take care of yourself, especially when it comes to your health, because mind, body, and spirit, as I will always say, are deeply interconnected. So, you know, you can have something off in your body that's keeping you from harnessing your magic. I talk about this when it comes to empaths and how, you know, nobody's special when it comes to being psychic. We can all tap into our psychic abilities if we want to, you know, and a lot of what people misconstrue as being an empath is just picking up on, you know, sort of these innate things that we have in the physical body that get sort of specialized, in the sense of sensationalism. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we all have, the ability to do it if we want to. It just takes practice, and not a lot of people are willing to put the time and effort into developing the spiritual body.
On a day, if you're not talking on day, if you could mute just because it has some echo coming back out. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just going to say, I think we naturally have a lot of that comes through when we're younger, and through a lot of social conditioning as well, kind of like what Kurt was saying. It really weakens it, because like I think of experiences that I personally had as a kid that were quite paranormal or just very very tricky to actually like explain away, you know? And
Like what?
Just like moments of telepathy, like between my mother and I, and seeing dead relatives and whatnot. You know, yeah. And yeah, always like kind of believing it. And who knows what else I had experienced that I just kind of went over my head.
Did
But
you have imaginary
certainly-
friends or?
Kind of, but not that I like imagined that someone was there with me. I just had someone that I told stories about. Yeah.
The
So my
eternal
sister had.
scapegoat. You're like,
Yeah.
that was Ralph again.
I wonder
know.
a lot about
Yeah.
imaginary friends or
Yeah.
maybe resonant memories in reincarnation, if that's a thing, or maybe just from other people's lives because you just got here and they just left, that somehow the memories are still here even though they're gone. You're getting someone else's memories. Who knows?
Okay, I wonder about that too. Like specifically related to the water in our body. Like when we die, where does all of that water go? Because water has been shown to hold information. Like Andreas, I sent you that woman Vita Austin, and actually 2 weeks ago someone had mentioned her in the chat, and I meant to bring it up in the show, but just
I'll pull
I'm
up
not assertive enough.
no, you did it just now. Vita Austin,
but I did
and then
now.
water. What do I do?
Yeah, Vita.
Vita. Okay.
Vita,
Secret
yeah.
intelligence of water.
Yeah, and then on her Instagram, she has quite a few examples. But basically, what she does is she takes a petri dish and fills it with water, exposes that to an image, or sometimes just a thought. But I mean, the very basics of it are like she'll lay it over an image for, I think, maybe just a few seconds, and then she'll freeze it. I think it's 30 seconds that she does it. Then she'll freeze it. But only part way, because she's found like it's just in that first several minutes of freezing that all the information is actually shown, and then any water that's left over after that just kind of makes it tougher to read the imagery. So she takes it out of the freezer halfway through, discards the water that's not frozen, and then what's left is a recording of something very similar to the image that she exposed it to. Some are much closer than others, but it's still, from what I've seen her do, and you can actually do this yourself. I have a petri dish. I haven't made the time to actually do the experiment, so I can't say from my own experience, you know, how
We'll blame your
accurate it can
imaginary
be,
friend.
but I believe it.
They've hijacked your
my
schedule.
imaginary friend. Yeah, he's done it several times, and I mean, he's had positive results.
So to reinforce what you've
pretty
been saying,
astounding.
Stephanie, number one is
Yeah.
they collect the water or salvage the water in Dune. You know, in Dune, they
Let's
salvage,
go.
so the water is super important.
Mhm.
And what you mentioned, what this lady does, was initially done by Masaru Emoto,
Yeah,
Japanese
that's who she was
political
inspired
scientist
by.
professor. But actually, what everyone can do, even if you don't have a lab setup or anything, you can do the rice hado experiment, which I'd highly
I
recommend
did.
to everybody. Maybe then you want to explain it. And yeah, I had the same result, is all I can say. So, you know, this is the proof for me. But Stephanie, if you
Yeah.
want to talk about it.
When you did the rice experiment, like each of the three were different. That's what you mean by the same result?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I mean, the
That's
same
what I
result, like
experienced
same that
too.
everyone got. That's what I meant, you know. So like,
Yeah. So with mine, okay, so the hate rice, which I had a really hard time with that because I felt so bad.
Not a
saying
fun thing to
hateful
project,
things.
right? Yeah.
No, it's an awful experience.
Next time, do it
But,
to like a McDonald's hamburger.
More ready to
That'll never
receive
mold,
that
though.
negativity, right? Yeah.
Yeah, something more ready.
But the hate rice liquefied.
Oh,
Like
my.
it was defeated. It lost. It turned to liquid.
Wow.
The ignore rice actually didn't really do much. I think it had a bit of mold, and you know what? The love rice was kind of the same. It looked a little bit different, but so I don't know. I need to work on my love, I guess. But each three were different. Like there were noticeable differences between the two, but the most noticeable was certainly the hate rice, which I was really surprised by.
I've
So-
seen people do this experiment with plants, and I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I couldn't bring myself to do something like that to a plant.
To a plant, right? Or to
Oh,
a Big
it's
Mac.
so cruel.
I mean, I'm just thinking. But this is interesting about the.
And the rice was growing, hey?
What'd you say, Bernie? You're
Oh,
yeah.
it like just like the release of emotions, and that it's interesting how it's
Mhm.
I think it's pretty interesting
Fascinating.
actually, the Veda's experiment, because she's doing she's doing this experiment to kind of Xerox the crystalline shape of something, and then this is becoming a crystal. Once it becomes a crystal, it continues to grow in the sheet shape of the crystal memory that's already in it. So it proves the fact that there is memory in water and in a lot of things, really. So I do, that makes me wonder, about what's
Where
in us
does our
from the
water
past.
go when we die and evaporate?
Are memories in water directly? Maybe that's where all memories are.
Yeah.
It's funny that
Or
we're
is
talking about
something copying onto water? Are we actually copying onto the water that is then put out into the world? Yeah.
That
we
seems
don't-
right.
Yeah. Do we originate as water? No, we're doing something. We're vibrating
We
something
are
into the
water.
water that is us, and then that memory imprint then disseminates into our greater atmosphere somehow.
Yeah, we have a lot of water, but we're not just water. We're like dirt. You know, we're stardust. So
Are y'all
There you go.
aware of Rupert Sheldrake's morphic fields?
Somewhat, yes.
Oh my God, morphic fields are so important.
It's a heady. I was just listening to
Morphic
him and
fields, so important.
Ralph Abraham talking about that today in a McKenna Trilog thing.
elaborate. What is
Well,
this?
it's just like it seems like what you're talking about is almost like Xeroxing a little with this ice data, but the whole point was Ralph Abraham. I think he's out in Santa Cruz, possibly even UC Santa
Of
Cruz.
course.
He's a math professor, whatever. He's the chaos math head honcho. Like it was his kind
Awesome.
of pet project originally, and perturbations and all this stuff. And he's friends with Terrence McKenna, R.I.P. Terrence, and Rupert Sheldrake, who's actually been on the Team Rabbit Hole podcast. So, but Rupert's whole shtick was like, there's a memory. I mean, they were trying to figure out, like, you know, what's happening, what chicken egg stuff, like creativity, where is it coming from? You know, if you go back to the Big Bang, are all the laws innately there, and then, you know, kind of going out? I mean, there's a lot of presuppositions built into these questions, clearly, and it was in the 80s. But I mean, basically, this is, I'll read this really quick for the kids who aren't saying. The morphic fields include all kinds of organizing fields of animal and human behavior, social, cultural systems, mental activities, can all be regarded as morphic fields, which contain an inherent memory. And in their idea, the universe has habits, and these habits can be kind of passed through. So it's not so much, you know, it's like how would I put it? The reason I asked is it seemed like, oh, look, if you put water near something, it's responding enough to the pattern that's inherent to replicate the pattern minimally. Anyway, I didn't even mean to ramble, but this guy's talking about stuff that kind of we're talking about, and I didn't know if y'all had any.
Dude,
inclinations
Mark, do you have
towards
any
it.
thoughts on water memory? Ping Trip just joined us. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man?
So we're talking about water. Yeah, absolutely. I know there's a lot of people in the hot tub. I'm excited. But
Two North Americans snuck on.
We were talking about
Vietnamese.
the Veda. Vita. Let me try that again. Vita Austin, and she does this water memory experiment that Stephanie showed us, where you can actually take something, put it into the water, start the freeze, remove it from the water, right, and then it will continue
You
the
discard
crystal.
the extra water.
I
Yeah.
saw. I was watching a little bit before I jumped on, and she was talking about like telling Rice that you hate it, and then
Right.
if you need somebody to tell Rice that you hate it, I'm your guy because I hate Rice. So I have no problem with that. I would shit
All
on
rice?
Rice all day long.
Dude,
What
he
about like
doesn't-
wild rice?
He doesn't care
All
what
rice.
color it is.
Like
He's-
bologna? Like,
All right. Except for the rice that's in and sausage, I can stand that.
okay, all right.
But I
Cajun
mean,
rice, I
what
guess.
about
Brain
inherent?
aside.
But what about inherent memory, though? This idea that we've got memory in the water, and that we've got former memories, or even this morphic field idea that we're latching on to these patterns, and these patterns are replicating through us, but they existed before us.
I think that experiment's pretty interesting. I mean, a lot of people have repeated that, right? Where you take
Yeah,
rice
so people
and,
here.
and then like when people grow plants and stuff, they do the same thing, right? Like if you talk to it, it tends to do better. If you like show it some
And
love,
play certain
So,
music.
something to
This-
it. You know,
this
I'm
seems
not-
like
Plantasia.
this seems like meme culture, though, too, memetics, because you've got this idea of behavior as something that is an organizing field. And so these organizing fields that are reemerging, that we see, the more that we live in them, the more we replicate them by living in them. So we're literally perpetuating them.
I mean, you see
reminds
it
me
with
of
humans
Coco.
too. You know, if you treat people nice, they tend to be happier and enjoy their life a lot more than if you treat somebody like crap. So definitely something to
Not
it.
necessarily. If you're too nice to people, they will be really resistant to it. Sometimes people respond with like contempt. depending
Well,
on
there's
how nice
fake
you are.
nice and authentic nice. I think
Canada
Yeah, I
knows.
think that's a big
Canada
part of
has
it.
Eskimo. Inuit have 50 words for snow. Canada has at least a dozen words for nice. Different kinds. So
Well, you look
you
at all
gotta
those
see
Nazi
through it.
babies, right? Like that they just like grew up in incubators. They didn't have a mother like showing them any love. A lot of those babies just died because they didn't get
Yeah.
any human touch or anything. I'm kind of talking about that. Like
Yeah.
if you have children, you don't show them love. They tend to be a little. It doesn't work
I
out well for
agree.
them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember watching a documentary
just-
on those kids from Eastern Europe being transferred to foster homes and struggling their entire lives to accept the fact that somebody else out there cares enough for them to give them a roof over the head and concern about their day-to-day inner existence. They couldn't handle it.
So what about the power of intention then? So, there's this idea also that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and we've got these intentions installed maybe through these fields, these behavioral fields. We learn how to behave a certain way, and then that's part of, we think that's attached to our intention, but they're different. We have an intention, then we have a response. So the intention leads to responses, which might not lead to positive outcome. And, maybe we're doing this to each other. We're installing, it's almost like witchcraft. We're hexing each other with these ideas or these thoughts or even these ways of using speech that are causing outcomes that are different than their intentions.
Well, there's like conscious intentions, unconscious intentions. It gets very psychoanalytic quick. People could live a certain way and think they're doing the right thing. Like the road to hell with good intentions, I think tends to be like ignorance can, when you're not seeing something with clarity, basically, it can really make feedback loops that aren't ideal. I mean, I'm sure those Nazi, incubator babies, they were trying to make a superior race. Like their intention was, aimed, I guess, but it didn't quite work.
Well, and what was their definition of superior, too?
Yeah.
Right. This kind of reminds me of another Canadian story. The Canadian heiress of a teen over terrorism allegations and cites the FBI intelligence. So, I mean, it's always the same story, though. It's a kid who's been kind of isolated from his local community who got on the internet and through YouTube and some of these websites is radicalized. Would you like to know more videos? And I mean, it's kind of strange, right? Because he probably talks about God a lot, has a lot of love in his heart for God or something. And then it's turned into this militarized nightmare. I mean, it's, again, the power of intention and the power of unconscious motivation, you're saying.
This person, though, in this experiment, in this example, is rather isolated, too, though.
Incubated, dare we say.
Yeah. Okay.
Incubated.
Yeah.
Incubated.
So it does not have an environment, a natural environment that is able to at least proactively reflect back on him his natural inclination for that expressive love that he has for God, which if he were able to have the understanding that God is in everything, God is the all, then God is able to then reflect that love back to him in a natural environment. So the more the isolated an individual is, the more maladaptive potentially they can become or manipulated they can become.
But the Amish make such good jellies.
They also give themselves Rumspraga so they can get out there and experience, you know what I'm saying? So
some incubators don't fail, I guess.
Well, then I wouldn't call that an incubator. They're just isolated from like general society, but they have families and strong.
They still have conversations with people to pass through. That's right.
Yeah.
Witness. We've seen that movie, right? So they get into fist fights every now and again.
That's the difference, because a colony or something like that, where they're living in an autonomous society inside of another society, is still different than an incubator, which is producing something that's to be released later. And so releasing a bunch of these chicks and hatching them into our society and then hoping that they'll better society. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of our goals have been, saying, oh, society's breaking down. We should isolate ourselves from society, incubate another generation that'll have better solutions.
The Noah method.
Yeah.
Like, get on the boat and let it die or whatever.
And ignore it until it fades away, right? But I mean, so it's hard to say that that's not the right thing to do.
Extreme option.
Well, the difference is there's no Amish car bombings or cart bombings, carriage bombings yet. They're not going around blowing up their carts. I think they're
the getaway method is problematic.
They're just standing around waiting for a cloud. Yeah. When COVID hit, you had to imagine how weird it was for the Amish. They're like, "Told you so." I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's right. Their response was, "We're good."
Yeah, exactly what we expected.
Yep.
That's it. I don't know. Also, there's the Polesia Plague Island. This is not in Canada, but you guys have Camp X, right? The Q's Camp X in Canada, which is similar to this idea. There's a small island less than a half a mile from Venice. It's a forbidden island with a dark and twisted past. This was constructed by the Venetian government and used as a plague quarantine station, but had also been used to develop strains of plague that could be used in warfare. And so it's major haunted, this whole idea of creating a thing that could be A, to save people from the plague, right? And then B, to weaponize the plague. It seems kind of familiar today, not just to stuff in the United States, but Canadian biosafety standards. The what's it called? There's an organization, I forget the name of the bio agency for Canada, but they build a number of these plants all around the world, not just in Canada, in order to experiment on different strains of tuberculosis or different viruses in order to make sure that we're safe, right? That's the explanation. But how close is this to getting ready for, even if COVID's not created on the Pelvesia Plague Island, how close are we to just making it possible for that to happen?
Are you talking about Winnipeg's biolab and like where they actually did have the cove?
Thanks so much for being Canadian enough to remember the Canadian scientist that sent the virus to Wuhan, right? Because it wasn't in DC.
Yeah, it was leaked. The RCMP caught 2 Chinese, I guess, worker students carrying the original COVID virus back from the Winnipeg lab. It was documented in 2018 or something, 2016 maybe.
Bummer. I didn't know about that. Like, what? That's ridiculous. Talking about like friends with benefits,
These are
I guess.
Canadian facts.
Narlar. Like,
Nice.
what?
I mean, yeah, it seems like we've ramped up civilization to destroy itself with the promise of protecting it. You know, we're making sure that we aren't going to get this virus. How? By having this virus and experimenting on this virus and making a stronger virus. It's how close are we to, how close are we to the end because of this, you know?
I mean, and everything we do around it too. Like that was the whole thing when it comes to, you know, the solution to it is, you know, we're going to protect ourselves from it by, you know, not just exposing ourselves to it, but like creating it from within. What?
It sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
My theory with this is okay, so it's in scales, right? So 9/11, at least in America, obviously was something where it's like the enemy is knowable as a terrorist cell, whatever, fight the cell at that level, whatever logic you want to play with that. And then it's gone to from an as without, so within. So it's like you are now the terrorist cell and you have to isolate, whatever, incubate, however you want to put this. And it's a new type of psychological warfare. And I don't know about y'all in Canada, but a lot of Americans, I don't think have reintegrated very well. I think we all kind of eye each other suspiciously at some subconscious level, just because of all the conditioning over the past few years.
I'm suspicious of all of you guys for sure.
That might be a gene. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, failed integration is interesting because we do live in a society where there are multiple ways of looking at every word, and that's enough to create 4 different stations run by the same corporation, you know, to explain the same thing differently, so that people all kind of can deal with what's going on. So we don't know what's going on. Simon should be in here. What? I know there's a lot of people now, Simon, but you're Canadian, so you should have been here. I'm sorry.
Is there room for Simon? Yeah.
You can try if you want.
So just as Jim mentioned it, I just want to point out again, you said terrorist cell, and now it evolved into, you could call it cancer cell, or maybe, you know, it's your spike protein cell, whatever. But even here you can see how the meme has been built up for a very long time. And I tend to suggest that just that it has been a scam overall, it continues to be. But also that, of course, from the point of view of certain, let's say, controller factions, of course, all the humans are the terrorists, you know? All living empathic beings are seen as the
Free
terrorists.
beings
you know?
are sketchy.
Why are they not pushing the monk cell more? I mean, everyone talks about tiny homes, but the monk cell, it seems like that's the future. You know, this is the future they want. I don't see bugs. Are there bugs in there?
You know, wait a minute. Andreas, that's like an amazing point to make, because as a Vaishnava who was raised Episcopalian, went through folkloric witchcraft, not Wicca, but then came to Hinduism. We have ashrams around, and these monks, both women and men, are very knowledgeable in the powers of the earth, the intrinsic powers of the earth, which is one of the reasons why they built the temples, to preserve the portals.
I mean, up until Airbnb, I only stayed in ashrams, and I still think I probably stayed as many ashrams as Airbnbs or couch surfing events. I mean, it's so much better when you go to Brazil and you're on a bus. You meet some guy who's in a local ashram, and then they take you in. There's organic food. Everyone's safe because they're all part of this community.
And they have a cohesive mind as to how to save the species, and that's one of the reasons why, as Fae, we're waiting for people to catch up, because this is the way society and civilization is going to persist. And we've got God the fuck knows, Goddess the fuck knows how long it's going to be till there's another cataclysm that we have no control.
Yeah.
Well, we might have control. That was the next thought. Have you guys seen that movie?
Like it's every 12,000 years, and they went into great detail to build these sky calendars showing us this shit. And
you guys remember that movie? You guys ever see Nausicaa?
Yeah,
Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind.
I think it's the very first Ghibli film.
It's
possibly.
To be fair, it was produced by what's his name from the Bilderberg Foundation, Karl Bernhardt, right? From the Teutonic Knights and the Black Nobility, and so he created the world.
I'll do this one nice thing for everybody. We'll do a nice cartoon, but then I won't do anything else. Yeah.
Well, but no, I mean, remember what this is about. Not only are we looking at the origins of Pikachu, right?
Micro,
the pocket monster that comes from Ghibli, right? But the idea, where does this come from? So they're living in this post-reset civilization. It says that after maybe it's been 1,000 years now since the fall of the 20th or 21st century, all these genetically modified super weapons that are partially alive have destroyed the earth. There's mushroom fungus that kills everything everywhere, and it eats all the oxygen, so people die, except for in these small colonies, which are very much like after the plague in the Dark Ages and Middle Ages in certain places, where there were religious colonies. And this character is the only character that seems to communicate with nature and isn't afraid of nature, because there's no way to beat it. At some point you have to recognize that these things, these giant, the omnus, these giant bugs that they're like ticks, but they're the size of malls, they're going to get their way. So you have to live with society, you have to live with nature. You can't work against nature. I mean, it's true in a lot of ways, but it's also interesting because it's this eco-propaganda from the Bilderberg Foundation, and it's one of the first worldwide animes that was seen by everybody, right? In the Soviet Union, in the United States, right? I think, oh my God, isn't Gwyneth Paltrow in the dubbing of this, Mark? Pretty sure.
No idea, dude. I don't follow her like that. Just her candle. I love her candle.
Just the scent.
I'm just checking on it. Yeah, I think she did. That's crazy. She did the dubbing for Nausicaa. That's a random sync.
Wow.
We just talked
first her voice, then her
That's
scent.
some synchronicity right there.
Dude, that's crazy right there.
You reminisce of the scent.
Well, okay. In terms of the what was the last thing we just went on? We did the border crossing, ferries. Anybody got anything else they want to make sure we cover?
I did, but I'm a Canadian pothead, so I suffer from short-term memory loss. And,
there was an RCMP story I wanted to look at really quickly. Where was that? Basically, the RCMP is going around trying to record everybody's phone calls. You guys have a Patriot Act that's happening right now through cell phones, and the RCMP.
That's called Stingray Technology, and they've been doing that for at least a decade.
Right, but what's messed up is that the servers they had were Chinese, and the Chinese government has copies of all of the cell phone records of every Canadian citizen for like the last decade now.
Fuck, y'all.
In French and English.
So does Google, so does Microsoft, so does Amazon, so does freaking all the corp. So
I'm not sure to what extent you discussed this, but there was also some talk about like even Chinese military in Canada and stuff with the ports and so on. But already I heard about it a year ago. But certainly that the Chinese, are much more around than one would guess, but I don't know how obvious it is or not. I mean, I guess here it becomes obvious that they're intertwined.
Yeah, and there was election
This is
interference.
really
and-
interesting. This is really interesting because, all right, even though I'm a Fae, I come from a military family. My father was in the 5th Air Force.
I could see that tying together, actually.
You know, the weird thing is that
Get your wings any way you can. Yeah.
you know, he was in the 5th Air Force, which is the first point of the armed forces bifurcating, meaning branching apart from the Army to the Air Force. He was also cleared 5th level up, which means eyes only, top secret, above top secret. And he never, ever fucking spoke about his experiences, ever. But when he was dating my mother, my future mom, they were abducted. And this is like in the early 50s, okay? The end of the war with the cleanup was 47. That was when the saucers came. They shot them down, okay? Next, he gets married in 52, has my brother in 54. I'm in 57, which was the biggest year for birth in the baby boom was 1957. So I've got all of this shit inculcated within me, and I've got a father who can talk, you know, about his experiences. But he did convey to me that my mother and him were taken by a sphere. Now, the sphere itself came up out of the ground. And if you listen to the granddaughter of Arnold Palmer, who is the one who first reported saucers, which is why we get the name Flying Saucers, she does not, Chantel is her name. She doesn't believe that they're extraterrestrial. She believes that they are an agency or an entity that has existed on Earth before humans.
It's interesting when you think about Arthur C. Clarke, because his original, before 2001, when he wrote Sentinel, he didn't have monoliths in the book. It was these spheroids, you know, the giant spheroids in the sky. And the monolith is, you know, the same framage as the 70 millimeter film. So the idea that the spheroids replaced, or its first contact is through media or technology, so through the cell phone, through the TV, through the screen, something like that. But
exactly,
is real.
Exactly. And they themselves were a life form. Yes.
That's interesting. That kind of gets into the UFO Eno 8,000 people thing, you know what I'm talking about? So today is the day. I've been talking about this for a few days now, but Eno Alaric on TikTok, so you know it's for real, said that UFOs are coming and they're going to get you this spring, March 23rd, right?
Today.
So what do you think? Today, right now. It's supposed to be in theaters now. So is this happening?
I guess that's why we're talking to Walter Bosley next, and they
Right.
scientists.
It's true. We got another show after this, so this will be our last subject. Is there any thoughts you guys have on Grindr or aliens? Any thoughts you have on either of those subjects? Probably aliens.
Alien Grinder.
I don't know why that would be the trending slang explored. Weird. Is that what it has to do with UFOs? Probably they're connected concepts. I can't be sure. But I mean, if aliens are coming, or if there's some sort of future alien that's actually super soldiers from the past, or whatever the deal is that it's supposed to be today? Is there anything going on that you think could be?
Trying to answer.
Do you think there's anything connected that's actually what's going on today that we could associate with, UFOs, or do we have to type in balloon?
Well, Andreas, just like you usually do, see what usually happens on that day. You know?
For today. Today is the day.
Yes, but historically, or in our modern Gregorian calendar, locked
That's
up
what
in
I'm.
key
Oh, of
at the
course,
Vatican, you know?
of course.
You mentioned that last time, and
in
it's a smart idea, yeah.
It's important. It's an important point. Yeah. So why is March
This day in history. Yeah.
a good point? You know what? Do that again. Do you want to try to read this? I'll make it bigger.
March 23rd. This day in history.
The Tran dynasty is deposed in 1400. Waltham Abbey surrenders to Henry VIII, 1568. The Peace of Longjumeau is signed. Second phase of the French Wars, American Revolutionary War.
Give me
Patrick Henry
liberty or
delivers-
give me death.
That seems pretty good. That could be some.
Hey, that's a hit.
Tsar First of Russia struck with a sword. Louisiana Purchase, Lewis and Clark, their core of discovery begins. Okay. That could be something. The core of discovery. That seems like a thing on the return. Massive earthquake, Greek War of Independence.
Kalamata olive war field.
So delicious. Worth it.
The Organic Act is signed in
So how many people are supposed to go
1868.
missing? 8,000?
8,000 people supposed to be gone right now.
Do you know that it's estimated that 2,300 children are missing every day?
Yeah.
That's gnarly.
So, I mean, you could have 8,000 people go missing, and that's just a regular day.
True. Yeah, we wouldn't even notice it. That's the thing with X Day for the Subgenius, right? Subgenius. They said that in 1998 that there would be this major X Day, and that would be the beginning of Slack. And a lot of people said, "Oh, you're crazy," right? But there has been a lot of changes in society that are subtle since 1998, enough that we live in a completely different lifestyle than we did in 1998. We can talk to each other instantly. We're doing this right now. I mean, this is a lot weirder than we give it credit for. Maybe we are living in this sort of post iPod, the iPod being HAL 2001 kind of monolith, and we're living in that period. Maybe there is something coming. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like there's something coming?
I think it's already here.
Yeah,
Right.
it's already here, but it's coming from us. I'm not waiting for them.
Well, I hope that July 2nd to 8th, we'll do another X Day, and then we can, kind of get like up to date on what's happening. I'm going to start to shut this down because we're doing another one. This is going to be the shorter one, but let me start to pull up some of your content. BalancedBlackwood.com, Instagram, Stephanie. What did I type in again? Didn't show up. Send me your links.
Okay.
Right.
I will say that, I don't think it's intentions that pave the road to hell. I think it's our attachment to intentions. That's the key to manifesting, is putting your intention out there and then surrendering to whatever comes, knowing that if it doesn't show up the way you expect it to, you are to expect something greater. And that's why you didn't get what you asked for, because something better and greater is on its way. So yeah, road to hell isn't paved with good intentions. It's paved with our attachment to our intentions.
I agree with that. Jeremy jumped in.
Thank you for that. I like that.
Jeremy, do you have thoughts on the alien thing? We're probably gonna get into that with Bosley in a minute, but what are your thoughts on all that?
I think that everybody should smash that like button if they haven't done so already.
Thank you for everyone saying it for me. I always feel like grifting. I feel like I ought to be grifting. So thank you for helping me. It's important.
Yeah, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Become a member. Sign up, everybody. This is important.
Self-drift. You have to have your friends do it and your guests.
You can set maybe you don't have a lot of money. Maybe all you have is like your grandfather's heirloom watch, and you can just like take a photo of it and send it in the PO box with like "I love you." We'll take any. We don't. It doesn't have to be money. We just appreciate you and thank you.
That's some good intention right there.
Good intentions, and that everybody can always go live now by hitting that live in the top right corner if you are StreamYard, and it also connects to your YouTube and Facebook and Twitter accounts. It's pretty epic. So, but we'll see you over at Walter Bosley.
Yeah. Also, make sure that you subscribe to all of our wonderful guests. Stephanie Scott, this is her Instagram. She has amazing art, and I definitely expect you to be checking back on some of the stuff she's doing. Look a little deeper. You know what I'm saying? Exactly.
I have a lot in the works too that will eventually be making its way onto there.
You can buy some of her stuff from the link tree as well. Go to the shop and buy some of the amazing stuff that she does. And then, of course, make sure you're subscribed. Look, she was in a magazine. How cool is that? Go to Alien
magazine.
Dude, keep it local.
Still
Alien
cool,
scientist Jeremy Reese. You showed up last minute, but make sure you guys check him out because he's the most amazing information on UFOs, aliens, advanced technology, declassified military tech, some stuff that hasn't been declassified yet. He's just figured out what it's about. So make sure you go there. And then Balance Blackwood, like I said, for the holistic care. Sign up for her newsletter. And when you do, make sure you click on that little button that says you found her through Xirtus, because that makes me feel cool. Subscribe to Raphael's Act Like You Know 26. He's got amazing videos with David Ewing Jr., some of the most important conversations you'll ever find, also with Team Rabbit Hole, which they're on the live section here. If you're interested in Team Rabbit Hole, go to teamrabbithole.com, where you can find out about the more recent episodes. There's just crazy stuff that Jim and Raph is putting out. Amazing interviews that are deeper and better than other interviews. It's my favorite interview channel is Team Rabbit Hole. So
you've been on there like 5 or 6 times.
Well, that's another reason I love it so much. But no, it's not just because of that. I swear. It's really just great. Let's do it again soon, by the way. That sounds like fun.
Definitely.
American Time Machine, Kurt, the man with the most amazing music. I hope everyone has already gotten a copy of his album, but you need to get in here and listen to Meditations in Winter, particularly to the most esoteric shit you've ever heard. But nice. Birds is good. I mean, it's just great. Bambience has been growing on me a lot. I like Bambience a lot. So, am I missing anybody? Pink Trip. The beautiful Mark. Make sure that you subscribe to Pink Trip. You have to watch all of his videos. He just did the most amazing conversation sequel with Alex Jones. And if you didn't think that God, it's just so good. And it's so well produced. And you did it at the InfoWars studio. And just, I'm so proud of you, bro. Like, this is great.
Oh, thanks, man. Oh, I just got here. We're already ending the damn show. Jesus, man.
Yeah, I know. It was an hour thing, but we're going to do another one. So don't worry. It's not the end it's just the beginning.
I feel insulted.
Well, Mr.
Cool to be around with you guys. This is a wonderful thing to stumble into. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for everybody.
One of the 8,000. I'm kidding. We've been abducted. This is it.
Yeah.
Made it.
God, if we could do hour-long episodes, I wonder if people would like that more or be more upset. We'll see. But Ingo Swann is so interesting. And if you really want to hear it for real, you got to go to MrDouglas.com, where you can find out the Secrets of Power audiobook series was created perfectly, just meticulously done by our dear friend Mr. Douglas. So make sure you go to MrDouglas.com and also subscribe to his channel, and make sure that you go to Darth Call's channel, because he does a show, I think, later tonight. Darth Call.
That looks like not tonight. Hopefully next week. Darth Call is still recalibrating.
Epic. Well, we love Darth Call. I want to see him on here soon again. And I know he's doing amazing Twitch streams, but you can watch all of the Better Call episodes with Mr. Douglas and Call right here on Darth Call. So subscribe. All right. I think I did a pretty good job. Bernie,
you are fantastic, Andreas. Thank you.
Crypto Alchemist. I almost forgot Crypto Alchemist. Make sure you subscribe to Bernie.
How dare you?
Yeah.
We're going live with Walter Bosley, Xirtus, and Jeremy Reese, the alien scientists, next. Going over the UFO UAP phenomenon.
Yeah,
I'm never going to Canada. You guys got to get rid of Justin Trudeau. Maybe I'll
It's
go
going to be
Canada.
weird when you wake up in Canada in an ice bath, and it's warmer in the ice bath than in Canada, but you're still missing your kidneys. Anyway, I love you all. I'll see you soon. God bless you.
Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who've lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created, this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively inclined. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our